we are in a war with China. China is definitely at war with us, whether we say so or not. Not a ground troop war, but they are buzzing our airplanes. They're cutting off our ships in international waters, likely conspiring with the Saudis and OPEC to further cut oil supplies and seemingly align with Putin on certain issues in the face of American interests. Look, China has been stealing billions of dollars of intellectual property for years from us, something China called out, or something Trump called out and was laughed at. So, yeah, we're in a Cold War. I don't care what you say, we are. Those that ignore history are doomed to repeat it, and the left loves to ignore history. They also love to rewrite it. Let's walk back to 1949, post-World War II. After we dropped a nuclear bomb to end it. It began an arms race, a race to nuclear supremacy. Now, the game isn't any different now, it's just different players. China instead of Russia, and the prize isn't nuclear supremacy, but rather minerals, energy, and technology. Think about it. China's investing heavily in nearly every continent to have access to all the rare minerals for all their technology and growth. When America left Afghanistan, what did China do? They jumped on over $1 trillion of lithium deposits there. What requires lithium? All this green new garbage, all the batteries and all the places like California just mandated over the next few years. Where do you think you're going to get that lithium from for those batteries, Gavin Newsom? Did we mine it when we were there for 20 years? Nope. But the Chinese did it in less than a year. Where are we going to be forced to get our lithium? We're being mandated to consume it, and we're going to have to go to China for it. And they can charge us whatever they want. In America, labor unions, environmental groups, they make it cost and regulatorily impossible to mine here in America because we're more worried about the blue-spotted frog or the sage grouse than our ability to be globally competitive. We are literally competing against ourselves. And the one guy that said he would have taken the resources, in that case it was oil, Trump said that, people like Biden, as VP, demonized him. While his son Hunter was like quietly picking up $2 billion in cash from China for business interests. Oh, Carl, that seems really conspiratorial. Really? How about this? Why do you think China is cozying up to Russia as they invade Ukraine? Two things: fossil fuels, and what does Ukraine produce a lot of? Neon. What is neon used for? Semiconductors. Who now produces the bulk of the world's semiconductors? Taiwan. And what does every technology in the world, or almost every technology in the world, require? Semiconductors. China doesn't recognize Taiwan as an independent country, and they want them back in their territory, even contemplated attacking them. If China can compete with Taiwan's main export, they can weaken and ultimately conquer the territory they still claim as theirs. China's out there playing 3D chess. And if you don't think they're moving towards global supremacy, you got another thing coming. But this is real news, and this is right out of the Cold War playbook. This just broke. During the Cold War, Russian positioned nuclear assets at the time, nukes, in Cuba, which is a short boat ride, like less than 100 miles from U.S. shores. What is China doing right now? Beijing is building an electronic eavesdropping facility that will be able to gather U.S. military secrets. Where? On the island of Cuba. Am I the only dude in the media who thinks this is a real problem? I'm not hearing this reported almost anywhere. And what's worse is half of America doesn't even seem to care. I mean, at least in the Cold War, the stigma of communism in America was bad. It was even a punishable offense if you were a sympathizer with it. Now, it's like taught in schools, even celebrated by some of our elected officials like AOC. The same ones who every day weaken us with their Green New Deal while ignoring this threat. Look, Joe Biden can label China anything he wants. It doesn't change their intentions. And we better wake up before we learn a very hard lesson, a very hard way. Joining me now to discuss the author of The Coming Collapse of China and the Great China Tech War, Gordon Chang. Sir, I'm interested in this because I feel like we're replaying the Cold War.
Yes, we certainly are replaying the Cold War, but it's a lot worse. Because China, for instance, is killing tens of thousands of Americans a year, probably about 65 to 75,000 with fentanyl. The Communist Party knows what's going on. They back the fentanyl gangs. They allow the fentanyl gangs to launder their money through the state banking system. And we say, oh, we have a president who can't say fentanyl and China in the same sentence. So we can call it a Cold War, but Americans are dying.
Right. Well, that is actually a good point, that tragically. Let's talk about the spy base, okay? They're moving stuff into Cuba. Like, we had this happen, it took Ronald Reagan coming in to finally end this thing. But at some point, Cuba's economy has basically been maintained by our tourism since it was reopened. Can't we just cut them off and say, hey, look, you're putting Chinese spy bases, you are out, we are putting you back on the list?
Yeah, well, we shouldn't have had relations with Castro's Cuba anyway. So, I'm certainly all for that. There are reports that China has been using the base at Lourdes. This was an old Soviet base, for listening in on our telephone conversations. Now they'll have even more capability with a new base. The Biden administration says, no, these reports are not accurate, but I actually think that they are. And then Biden is basically trying to cover for China on this one. But one other thing, Carl. We allowed China to spy on us from our own soil. This has occurred for decades, and we've got to cut this out. This is just completely unacceptable. We may have a hard time dealing with China in Cuba. There are things we can do, but we certainly can deal with China in America.
Yeah, you would think. Like places like Texas are passing laws to say that they can't, ban farmland or buy farmland, which seems overly rational to me. But at the end of the day, and I got about a minute left, if we refuse to acknowledge that we are in a Cold War, even like a fentanyl war, like you had mentioned, how do we take steps to solve this seriously?
We can't, and we're going to lose our country because China is using every point of contact to undermine our country. And it's just, it's not just a question of the Chinese consulates or the police stations, but all their contacts with business, their state banks, you name it. We need to end those contacts because we need to save our country.
Yeah, well, Gordon Chang, I can't think of anybody more knowledgeable than listening to you. Sir, I appreciate you joining us very much.
Thank you so much, Carl. I appreciate it.